In today's video, we will discuss the principles of economics. You know that these principles of economics form an important part of the 4-year UG program in many of the universities and colleges in our country. Therefore, I believe that this will be useful for many of the students in the first year 4-year UG program in economics. Here we will discuss 10 important principles of economics, and these principles have been taken from the book written by Gregory Mankiw. The name of the book itself is Principles of Economics. Let us discuss the first important principle. The first principle is that the people face trade-off. We know that to get something that we like, we usually have to give up something else that we also like. That means people always make a trade-off between different things. So if you wanted to have something, then you have to give up something else. If you wanted to study more, then you have to actually sacrifice your time for playing football or cricket. On the other hand, if you wanted to play more football and cricket, then you have to sacrifice the time for studying. That means making decisions requires trading off one goal against another. Let us take this to the case of a society. And in the case of a society or a country, we need two important things. First is to protect ourselves from foreigners, we need a national defense mechanism, for which we have to produce guns. And to feed our population, we need to produce consumer goods. So if an economy gives more importance to the production of the defense equipments for national defense, then definitely the economy will have to sacrifice the production of consumer goods. On the other hand, if the economy uses its resources for the production of consumer goods, then it will have to reduce the production of guns which are necessary for national defense. Take another trade-off between efficiency and equality. And what is efficiency? Efficiency means that society is getting the maximum benefit from its scarce resources. What does it mean? If you are able to produce maximum from your resources, then you can say that you are very efficient. A country will become more efficient if it is able to produce more out of the resources that it has. What is equality? Equality means a situation where benefits are distributed uniformly among society's members. That means if you take away money from the rich people and redistribute it to the poor people, then you can say that there is equality. So here also there is the possibility of a trade-off. How does this trade-off come in the case of efficiency and equality? You know that when the government tries to redistribute income from the rich to the poor, then there will be equality. But on the other side, it will reduce the incentive for the people to work hard. They will become less productive. They will use less time for work. Why do they use less time for work? Because they know that even if they work hard, a good part of their income will be taken by the government for redistribution. So that will definitely lead to the decline in efficiency. It means if a government tries to redistribute its income in pursuit of ensuring equality, then definitely the objective of efficiency will be in danger, or that will have to be sacrificed. That means you can achieve equality, you can increase equality only at the cost of what is called efficiency. So you have to reduce efficiency when you are trying to increase equality, then you have to reduce efficiency. It does mean that there is a trade-off between efficiency and equality. In this way, when you come to different things in economics, when you deal with the different people in market, when you try to behave in the economy, to purchase different things, to sell different things, or to engage in different economic activities, then you can see different kinds of trade-off. Trade-off between efficiency and equality, trade-off between the production of the items for national defense and consumer goods. This is the first important principle that Gregory Mankiw is trying to explain in his book, that is, people face trade-off. Let us come to the second important principle. What's the second important principle? Second important principle is this: the cost of something is what you give up to get it. This is nothing but the opportunity cost. You might have studied opportunity cost in your +2 courses or pre-degree courses. So therefore, this is same thing as we discuss in the +2 syllabus, that is opportunity cost. It is being put here in a different way. The cost of something is what you give up to get it. The cost of education. The cost of education is the time which you give up for playing football or cricket. That means if you try to spend more time for education, more time for studies, then you have to forego the time for playing cricket or football. That means you are giving up something to get something else. If you have a plot of land, if you wanted to build a hospital there, then it does mean that you are giving up the opportunity of that land being used for something else, because the land could have been used for the construction of educational institution. So a land can be used for the construction of hospital and education institution. If you construct a hospital there, then it does mean that you are giving up the other use of the land. Let us it be the construction of an educational institution. So because people face trade-off, making decision requires comparing the cost and benefit. The opportunity cost of an item is what you give up to get that item. When making any decision makers should take into account the opportunity cost of each possible action. So when you do an action or when you take a decision, you have to consider the opportunity cost of that action. In simple way, you have to consider the cost and benefit of an action. So this is the principle number 2. The cost of something is what you give up to get it. Third important principle is rational people think at the margin. Who are the rational people? Rational people are those who systematically and purposefully do the best they can to achieve their objectives. So rational people systematically and purposefully do the things so that they can achieve their objectives. Such people are said to be thinking at margin or at the edge. So economists normally assume that people are rational. While dining, we think whether we should take an extra spoon of something. A rational decision maker takes an action if and only if the action's marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. So if marginal benefit of an action exceeds the marginal cost of the action, then we will take up that action. So a rational decision maker takes an action if and only if the action's marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. Marginal means we are thinking at the edge. We are thinking about the additional. That's why we give an example here. When we go for a lunch, and while taking lunch, we will be thinking of whether we should take an extra spoon or not, whether we should additionally order something else or not. That means we will always be thinking at the margin. We will be thinking about the additional. So a rational decision maker takes an action if and only if the action's marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. This is the third important principle of economics, that is, rational people think at the margin. The fourth one is people responding to incentives. You know that we always responded to incentives. If you are rewarded for something, then you will do more of that activity. If you are given an additional money for getting the first position in your class, then you will have an incentive to work hard, study hard, and you will have an incentive to continue to get that reward again and again. So what is an incentive? An incentive is something that induces a person to act, such as the prospect of punishment or reward. So if you punish a person, it is a disincentive. That person will be discouraged to do that. On the other hand, if you reward a person, that is an incentive for that person. So that person will be encouraged to do something. Let us take this to the situation of market. Let us suppose that there is an increase in the price. So if the price increases, then it will provide an incentive for buyers to consume less. So as price increases, we will be demanding less. So price increase is an incentive for buyers to consume less. But at the same time, it's an incentive for sellers to produce more. As price increases, sellers will sell more, because price increase is an incentive for sellers to sell and produce more. Take another example. A tax on petrol encourages people to drive smaller and more fuel efficient cars. So if the petrol price increases, then we will be purchasing small car which small cars have more fuel efficiency. And also a higher petrol tax also encourages people to switch to hybrid or electric cars. So you know that today more hybrid cars are being sold in our state, in our country. Because of the increase in the petrol price, people switch to the hybrid car, they switch to the electric cars. So this is what is called incentives, or how does incentive work in the economy. Incentives work in the economy because people tended to respond to that incentives. Sometimes they respond negatively, sometimes they respond positively. The fifth important principle is trade can make everyone better off. Trade between United States and China is not like sports contest in which one side wins and the other side loses. You know that when two teams compete in football or cricket, there is a possibility of one team winning and there is a possibility of the other team losing the game. But when countries compete in international market, it is said that every country will be benefiting from trade. So trade between two countries can make each country better off. So if countries engage in trade, then all countries will become better off, or each country will become better off. Trade allows countries to specialize in what they do best and to enjoy a great variety of goods and services. By trading with others, people can buy a greater variety of goods and services at lower cost. So if you trade with others, you can buy commodities from other countries, variety of goods from other countries at less cost. So trade is something which will make every country better off. This is the principle number 5. Now principle number 6. Markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity. The question is, how do you organize economic activity? Will you taking the help of the market to organize economic activity, or will you be taking the help of the government or the state to organize economic activity? It is said that market is a best way to organize economic activities. That is why most countries have adopted market economies. What is a market economy? A market economy is an economy that allocates resources through the decentralized decisions of many firms and households as they interact in markets for goods and services. So a market economy is not like a centralized economy, state economy. In a centralized economy, every decision will be taken by the central planner. But in market economy, decisions are taken by the interactions of millions and millions of firms and households. So a market economy is an economy that allocates resources through the decentralized decisions of many firms and households as they interact in markets for goods and services. In any market, buyers look at price when deciding how much to demand. Sellers, they look at the price when deciding how much to supply. When you go to the market to buy commodities, you look at the price. When the seller sells commodities in the market, he looks at the price. As a result of these decisions, market prices reflect both the value of a good to society and the cost to the society of making the good. So prices actually reflect the value of the good. Prices reflect the value of the good because prices are determined by the decisions of millions of firms and households. And prices are determined in the market. Prices are not determined by the government. Prices are determined in the market. In the market, buyers and sellers join together. They try to buy and sell commodities. Through their actions in the market, prices are determined. Therefore, you can say that markets are a good way to organize economic activity. Principle number 7. Governments can sometimes improve market outcomes. When you say markets are good, it does not mean that government is not at all needed. Government is needed. Government is required. Government is a must. Because with government, you can improve the outcome of the market. If you leave everything to the market, there will be problems. So it's very necessary that there must be some intervention of the government. With the intervention of the government, it is possible to have an improved market outcome. So one reason we need government is that market economies need institutions to enforce property rights so individuals can own and control scarce resources. So to ensure property rights, we need the government, we need the law, we need law enforcement agencies to ensure property rights. Unless there is property right, nobody will come and invest. Unless there is property right, nobody will produce, nobody will cultivate, nobody will own resources, nobody will purchase land, nobody will own capital. So property right is very, very needed. And who will ensure that property right? It is the government. Without government, there is nobody to take care of the rights of the people. So rights of individuals, rights of producers, rights of consumers, and that rights can be safeguarded only by the government. So government is very necessary. What is property right? Property rights refer to the ability of an individual to own and exercise control over scarce resources. If I have a right over the resources, it does mean that I own the resource. Nobody will question me and I exercise my control over that resources. There are two broad rationales for government to intervene in the economy. Why does government intervene? Because of two reasons. With government intervention, you can promote efficiency and you can promote equality. So to increase efficiency, to increase equality, you need a government. Economists use the term market failure to refer to a situation in which the market on its own fails to produce an efficient allocation of resources. So sometimes market fails. You cannot always trust the markets. You cannot always believe in the capacity of the market. Markets can fail. What is market failure? Market failure means a situation in which the market fails to produce an efficient allocation of resources. If that happens, then who will come to the rescue of the market? It is the government. Government will come to help the market. So government is very, very necessary there. To help the economy from market failures, we need government. Another is a case where there is an externality. One possible cause of market failure is externality. What is externality? Externality is the impact of one person's action on the well-being of the bystander. If I do something and if my bystander or if my neighbor suffers from that, if my neighbor is not able to adjust with my actions, it does mean that I am producing some negative impact on the neighbor. If I If I run a factory and if the factory creates pollution and if the people living in the surroundings of the factory get affected badly by the pollution, it does mean that my positive action has a negative impact on the other people. This is what's called externality. Externality can be negative and positive. So therefore, because of the externality, there may be market failures. And to correct the externality, to find a solution to the externality, we need the intervention of the market, intervention of the government in the market. The classic example of externality is pollution. When the production of a good pollutes the air and creates health problems for those who live near the factories, the market on its own may fail to take this cost into account. So therefore, to solve the problem of negative externalities and market failures, etc., we need the involvement of government. That is why we often say that governments can sometimes improve market outcomes. Now, another possible cause of market failure is market power. So here, what are the causes of market failure? Two important causes. One is externality that we have already discussed. Second is market power. What is market power? Market power refers to the ability of a single person or firm to unduly influence market prices. Market power means if a person has more market power, he will be able to influence the market price. If there is only one seller, if there is only one producer, that producer will sell the product at the highest possible price, and that will be very disadvantageous for the consumers. So if there is concentration of market power, it will be dangerous. So to avoid market power, we need the presence of the government, and market powers is an important reason for market failure. So in the presence of externality of market power, well-designed public policy can enhance economic efficiency. So public policy can enhance economic efficiency if there is market power and externality. And to frame public policy, to form public policy, to make legislations, to ensure property rights, we need the presence of government. That is why we again stress the point and the principle number 6, that that governments can sometimes improve market outcomes, because there are times when markets fail, and when markets fail, government can come and save the market, for which government must make certain type of legislations, laws, rules, etc., and that are very necessary in an economy, and that can be ensured only by the government. Now, principle number 8, a country's standard of living depends on its ability to produce goods and services. There is truth in that. There is nothing surprising in this argument. We know that our ability to produce goods and services, that decides our standard of living. If you are able to produce more goods and services within a short period of time, it does mean that you are more efficient. Then you will be getting more income. And if you get more and more income, your standard of living will be increased. This is applicable in the case of a country also. So the differences in living standards around the world are staggering. Changes in living standards over time are so large. What explains these large differences in living standards among countries and over time? The answer is nothing. The answer is surprisingly simple. Almost all variation in living standards is due to differences in countries' productivity. That is the amount of goods and services produced by each unit of labor input or capital input. So if your country's productivity is less, what does it mean? You are able to produce less goods and services. If you produce less goods and services, then your standard of living will be below. If your productivity is high, what does it mean? It means your ability is more in the case of the production of goods and services. You are producing more goods and services. If you are able to produce more goods and services, then your standard of living will be high. In short, what the principle number 8 says is that a country's standard of living depends on that country's ability to produce goods and services. Principle number 9, Prices rise when the government prints too much money. When there is too much money in the economy, prices will increase. If prices rise, it means inflation. So one problem that an economy faces is inflation. What is inflation? Inflation refers to an increase in the overall level of prices in an economy. Many countries consider inflation as public enemy number one. Inflation is so dangerous that countries usually consider inflation as public enemy number one. The main reason for inflation is nothing but the growth in the quantity of money. So if there is more money supply in the economy, then prices will be increased. So there is a direct relation between money supply and prices. An important reason for inflation is nothing but the growth in the quantity of money. That is what this principle number 9 explains. Prices rise when the government prints too much money. Now the last principle, principle number 10. What does the principle number 10 detail out? It says society faces a short-term trade-off between inflation and unemployment. It does mean, if inflation is high, then your unemployment will be less. And if your inflation is low, then your unemployment will be high. This is the mean. So you know that inflation and unemployment, both are problems. An economy has to confront these two problems. An economy has to solve these two problems, inflation and unemployment. But unfortunately, these two problems in the short run cannot be solved together. If you try to solve the problem of unemployment, that means if you try to reduce unemployment, then inflation will be increased. If you try to reduce inflation, then unemployment will be increased. That means there is an inverse connection. There is a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Increase in the amount of money in the economy stimulates overall level of spending and thus the demand for goods and services. So if you increase money supply, then there will be stimulation in the economy that will increase the demand for goods and services. Higher demand causes firms to raise their prices. But in the meantime, it also encourages to hire more workers and produce larger quantity of goods and services. Hence, there is trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So, prices rise, but at the same time, unemployment comes down. Hence, there is a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Higher the inflation, lower will be unemployment and vice versa. This is the principle number 10. Society faces a short-term trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So let us see once again all the principles. Principle number 1, people face trade-off. Principle number 2, the cost of something is what you give up to get it. This is nothing but the opportunity cost. Principle number 3, rational people think at the margin. Principle number 4, people responding to incentives. Principle number 5, trade can make everyone better off. Principle number 6, markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity. Principle number 7, governments can sometimes improve market outcomes. Principle number 8, a country's standard of living depends on its ability to produce goods and services. Principle number 9, prices rise or inflation occurs because of the government printing too much currency. Principle number 10, society faces a short-term trade-off between inflation and unemployment. With this, we complete the principles of economics as explained by Gregory Mankiw in his very famous book on macroeconomics.